So thank you so much, the STEAM panel, for joining us. Since we have a very large panel, what we have done is, I'm not going to be introducing the panel. We're going to be putting up slides so that you can get to know the panelists. But to just give you guys a brief about our panel, so we have a mix of industry leaders of retail, starting with some of the notable brands. There are folks from supply chain management who are doing great work in integrating the online and offline experience. We have Kavita from Accenture, we have Deepak from VServe, and of course MasterCard, right? The data, the power of data, which is something which these guys realize a lot. So what we're gonna do is we are gonna be discussing 3 core topics of this discussion, right? So one is the journey of combining online and offline. I still remember the days 8 years back, 9 years back, there was a competition between the offline team and online team. Like if you go to the offline team and tell them, you know what, we can migrate some customers from online to offline, or maybe migrate offline customers to online, there would be a lot of tension between both the teams, to the point when COVID came and we were all forced to create like a singular experience and see online as a channel, which will be an enabler, right? So we're gonna be talking a lot about how that journey has been. In that journey, what were the enablers which allowed that journey to happen in a seamless way? And where is the future of this entire offline plus online going to be in the next 1 year, 2 years, 3 years? So we're gonna start with Abhishek from Puma. So we're gonna be covering first the brand story, and then we will go on to the enablers which are there as a part of the panel. So Abhishek, over to you. Yeah, you can take this.
Check. Yes. All right, Mr. Khurana. The journey, I would say, that has been phenomenal. Nothing short of phenomena. Because if you look at 8, 10 years back, you know, I was in the same company, the same industry. The competition was not between online and offline teams only. In fact, a lot of brands and retailers created offline and online teams later. Actually, competition from online, when it emerged as a new channel, brands and retailers would also see that as a competition to themselves, because we all were wired to manage offline channels, with trade, a very large part of the business being with trade and retail partners. And offline and online seemed to be the new competition. So brands themselves would see this, and there were so many naysayers during that time. And I think the speed at which things have evolved on the business side is dramatic. And the biggest reason for that is that consumers have evolved. And the consumers today, the way they consume product, the way they discover product, to the way they finally make a decision buying a product, the way they transact a product, and then the way they engage with the brand or the retailer is very, very different. So I would say that's very, very drastic, dramatic change. Today, the consumer, we always use this word omni-channel and offline, online. In my mind, the consumer doesn't see it like that. The consumer is already moving from social media to a chat platform like a WhatsApp, to an e-commerce platform, discovering products, then going and trying out products in stores, maybe buying in stores or returning online. So consumers are already in a very, very omni-channel. Businesses, in my mind, today are doing the best, are best set up for success, who are enabling this for the consumer and making this journey very, very seamless for the consumer.
Super. Sanjeev, would you like to add on it?
Yeah, hi. Thank you, Mr. Khurana. Okay.
I am just facing identity crisis because Deepak Khurana is my surname. It's being used.
Okay. So about 5-6 years back, similar platforms. There are so many platforms in India today where we are asked to speak on the same thing, And 5 years back when we were talking about online and offline, to a certain extent, yes, because, the way that we are wired is, as Abhishek said, that, we are very wired in terms of offline. So you have your sales and distribution, you have your stores, you're pumping in enough money into your stores, so you're very focused to make sure that all your stores have to make money, they have to be operationally profitable, all of that. And then came the stage when, in fact, I must mention this, which I mentioned in the speakers lounge, that Abhishek and a couple of brands, Abhishek was leading Puma at that time also, and they were one of the few first movers into online, and we were all wondering, ye kar kya raha hai? What is he doing? I mean, why is he not focusing? But that's what exactly grew. So it's and I think over a period of time, what happened was, as you rightly said, that during COVID, people didn't have an option. So the adoption of online kind of skyrocketed. And when that skyrocketed, there was already a momentum of people moving online. And we are talking about the single view of the customer, where, is the same consumer who basically shops online and offline today for us. We are a Gen Z millennial brand where, we see most of our consumers actually doing the discovery on their mobile phones. And by the way, the consumption also is directly proportional to, how much time are you spending on your phone, because that's where you discover products in today's date. I can't be as active on my advertisement than pumping more money into digital. That's what we all are doing, because that's where the discovery is happening. So the journey for us has been that today we are roughly at about 20 to 23% of our turnover comes from our online business, which is, our brand.com, marketplaces, Omni, all of that. Omni, again, coming to Omni, about a couple of years back when we were talking about Omni, people were saying, it's okay, fine, it's just another technological thing, where you can buy from somewhere, return somewhere, do all of that. But today it has become a norm, it's become a habit. This is, without it, it's not possible to work, and that's given us a flip of about 25% in then coming to the next stage, which I'm again tabling, the metaverse. Now, there are a lot of people, and I personally believe that today in metaverse, there is, you have a metaverse store, your ROI is zero, you don't expect anything, but that also can be the future. So I think there has been a considerable amount of, change that has happened to the consumer, and specifically the Gen Next, which we see in today's date becoming the highest consumption, population. I think there's going to be a very stable balance between offline and online. But at some point in time, I'm sure if you look at retail as a category and consumption, a large part would move online. Yes, that's what is my take.
The interesting story about online also is like, it has also become a medium for us to do research. And I remember us having that discussion, right, wherein before entering in the store, we've already sort of prepared our mind in terms of what we want to buy, what are the kind of products looking at. So Kavita, I would love to understand from you, since you've come from a lot of experience in retail and now working at Accenture. So how has that journey for you has been, and what is the future which you see, and what are the enablers which you think are really, really necessary for us to excel in this journey?
Sure. Thank you, Ayushmaan. I'm not using the last name, so maybe that helps. I think it's a very good question, and the way I see it is, of course, the online plus offline convergence has been very good on many fronts. One, it has been very good for the consumers, because I think all of us have discovered the convenience associated with online shopping. It has been very good for the retail industry as a whole, because in the last couple of years, a big part of the growth in the retail industry has come on the backdrop of online, right? So 2 or 3 fundamental areas where it has really helped. But on the backdrop of it, I would also say that brands have been challenged. I think all of us would agree that this transition to omni-channel has necessarily not been easy. It has been a painful journey, and there has been a lot of learnings and unlearnings that has come along with it, right? Sanjeev mentioned briefly about digital marketing, but I think all of us agree that in the last few years, we've all had to relearn what marketing is all about, right? Gone are the days when it was just about looking at a TV ad or a print ad, and you did a new ad campaign, and that was the end of the story in terms of creating awareness for the brand. Today, it is a complex landscape where digital marketing is ruling the roost, and the spends on digital marketing is quite similar to what you see on TV, for example, which traditionally in India has been a medium that has been leading for the largest period of time. So a lot of learning and unlearning that has come on the marketing front. The second area I would highlight is the whole bit around customer experience. I think all of us in the room would agree that we've all experimented a lot in terms of creating different kinds of customer journeys. There have been lots of questions. The online to offline transition, I think all of us know that more than 80% of the journeys, the discovery process is really starting online, right? And the fundamental change that has happened is maybe 2 decades ago, this process started with search. Everybody was racing around to get their search engine marketing and optimization done. A few years ago, it moved to the aspect of social and live commerce, right? And now we are already talking about retail media networks and what it means in that space. There is a tremendous amount of shift that is coming along. And all along in the customer journey, that has been a challenge in terms of how do we really design frictionless journeys? How do we make sure we really truly understand the customer and are able to personalize content that is really shared with the customer? The third important aspect I would highlight is related to supply chain. Again, I would say that everybody in this room would agree that our supply chains today are not optimal because they were never designed for a 40% share of online sales or a 30% share of marketplace sales, right? Every retailer today is starting a conversation in terms of re-looking at their supply chains and figuring out, is it really optimal, both in terms of service levels as well as costs, right? So there have been some of these fundamental principle changes that have happened, but at the end of the day, I would say that the industry has grown phenomenally. India is the 3rd largest retail market in the world today, and it is continuing to grow at a rate that is double of the global markets. So there is really something there for all of us to take note of and look at what the future holds for us.
Yeah. So very interesting point on supply chain. Like, and I would love to, this has been, I think, one of the biggest pain point for every retailer in terms of how do you ensure that we are able to provide that seamless experience across offline and offline. So would love to hear from you guys on the kind of problems and how do we go about it.
Definitely. Thanks, Ayushmaan. So, just want to start with a story, right? My entire career, I've been in the business of supporting supply chain companies, supporting manufacturers, supporting logistics providers, supporting retailers, right? And 12 years back when I met the CEO of Best Buy, he told me one of my biggest problems today is I'm training people and called the Geek Squad, and then they come to my store, customers come to my store, they learn about the product, they learn about the technology, they learn about everything, and then they go and buy it on Amazon, right? And it was kind of there was a lot of overt pessimism at that time. Everybody was like, oh, what is the future of offline retail and so on and so forth. And cut to today, right? We've just, I want to say we've crossed a pandemic where a pandemic is behind us. I want to say that. But, and what I hear is, the retail leasing space in India, there's an increase in demand by 25%. So this is on one hand. So there is still demand for offline retail. There is still demand for store space. And of course, e-commerce in India is growing at a tremendous rate of like a 40% per year. And these two are going hand in hand and not competing with each other. So today when I speak to manufacturers, for them it's a no-brainer to talk about here's one channel for me, e-commerce is one channel for me, modern trade is one channel for me, general trade is another channel for me. How do I plan for this? How do I forecast demand for this? How do I plan my supply for this? How do I integrate my inventory for this? And so on and so forth, right? Similarly, we have supply chain solutions. We have transportation management solutions, our Luminate transportation solutions. In fact, during the March 2021 Suez Canal blockade, our inventory management solutions were able to, predict, the control tower was able to predict when customers were going to get that inventory, right? And, cut to retail, we have a whole suite of category management solutions. We have an 83% market share in that, and it's still growing, right? And this is solution that is only for store. It's not for online retail. Just offline retail, and we have an 83% market share in that, and it's still growing. It's almost like a cash cow, right? And then with e-commerce, so other than the whole supply chain piece and the integration, we have acquired a company called Yantrix, and we have an order management solution that supports e-commerce. So this is sort of our, as a company, what we see as a trend, right? And especially India is like a huge growth story for us. Just in the last maybe 2 years, Indian retailers and Indian manufacturers, the calls to us have increased by 400%. Everybody wants to invest in technology because that's the pivot, right? And just to sort of loop back to my Best Buy story. So today, if you go, take any example, right? Take like a pepper fry, for example. So you go to a pepper fry, you can't even buy anything from the store, but people go to their studio or what they call customer experience centers, and they experience the product. And customers like pepper fry, people in that space, they want a customer experience story in their stores, and they might sell it in any channel, right? They might sell it in store, they might sell it online, but they are talking to us about things like, what can AI do for us? What can virtual reality do for us? Can I give a very, very focused customer experience for somebody coming to buy furniture in my store of virtual, how there's a sofa set might look in their house? How can I enable that? How can technology enable that? And of course, an automated supply chain that enables all these things. And when I say automated supply chain, the future is things like, self-driving trucks and cars. And so as technology builders, we have to think of those questions when we look at the future, how we are going to meet that demand, how we are going to still compete in a space where these kind of technologies, and this is how retail looks.
Actually, would you like to add on that?
So, good afternoon, everyone. Basically, I am from apparel manufacturing background, and I have accidentally stepped into SaaS sales for the last 2 years. Correlating to all that has been said here, right? So as a manufacturer, I used to manufacture a separate pool of inventory for offline and online back in the days when I started working, that is say 2007, 2015. So there's clearly been a journey when it comes to the online space and the offline space as well. Pre-2015, I think a lot of us were very, very scared to go and buy online until say likes of Myntra and Amazon came into existence. I remember ordering an Apple iPod look-alike back when I was in college. I received something that never worked, and then that was the end of my online journey until say 2010 or 11. Right? That's probably when the other marketplaces started working, and slowly and gradually I gained the trust. So post 2015, and especially after and during the pandemic, my company, especially Incref, got a lot of boost in terms of retailers wanting to expose their entire inventory in their warehouses to the online sales channels, because at that point of time, that was the only avenue available for sale. And the way we do it is we are very, very real time, and you can essentially expose even the last piece of inventory. So that brings in a lot of efficiency in itself. That is one thing. That was where we got into workflow management for a lot of brands and multi-brand retailers in India. Second bit that we also do is today in the morning, I was here in one of the presentations by BCG where the report was being released. So there was a talk about some trillions of gigabytes of data that gets generated in the retail space itself, right? So what do we do with that, trillions of gigabytes of data? We are putting it in Excel sheets and trying to figure out what to do, going forward. So there's another line of solutions where we again help retailers and brands optimize what is it that they should be buying, going forward and placing in their stores at a very, very granular level. One of the studies that Ayushmaan, our co-founder, he he has moved to UK. He met a lot of brands there, and he's realized that everybody is still working on Excel, right? When you have so much power of computing available to optimize your entire supply chain, buying, planning, everything that you can do, right? So we are helping brands, retailers, one, optimize your exposure to online marketplaces, make it very, very real time, right? Because your sync times, etc., can make or break. You might you might invest a lot of money in the front end marketing, but that is also something that needs to be taken care of. And also ensure that you buy right, place it right in the right point of sales. Yeah. So that's what we are doing. Yeah.
So Venkat, I have a question for you. Like, here we've been talking about, the way we are talking about creating that one singular view, providing real-time supply chain management analytics, where the inventory is. It sounds very easy, but I'm sure, I know for a fact it's not. Like, retailers have done a lot of work to make this entire ecosystem work in a seamless way. So how has been trend journey? Like, and considering like you guys have a plethora of brands and large format store, having that online presence also is very difficult with that sort of catalog, product catalog. So how has been the journey for Trent?
Thank you, Ayushmaan. It's been a very interesting journey, and actually, the models that we thought we'll work with when we started, compared to what actually landed up working, was very different. And I just wanted to therefore step back and say that each brand, I guess there are a set of choices to be made. What works for a brand doesn't necessarily work for another brand. And being careful about it and thinking through carefully possibly makes a big difference. For instance, take Trent itself, we don't list ourselves on marketplaces as a matter of choice. And that doesn't mean marketplaces are bad. It's just a matter of choice of saying we'll be 100% direct to consumer. We do not want to sell anything to anybody other than the end customer. Now, that's not a small call, because there is so much argument to be had of saying you're missing out on reaching hundreds of millions of customers, at least in terms of awareness, if you don't present yourself on marketplaces. But there are the other side to that coin is you control everything. There's very little flex any intermediary has in terms of whether your brand is available, what products are available, what discounting is applicable, what promos, what presentation, whether it is listed or not. All of it is your problem, and it's not something which you are at the mercy of any intermediary. Or for that matter, we started with saying, okay, we should try click and collect. And there have been models which have worked very well in the Western world, where click and collect has been a big deal. It doesn't work, at least for us, it doesn't work in India at all. In fact, when we started it, we said people will come, we will create counters, we'll turn around and provide service, we anyway have physical presence and all of that lovely stuff. And what you figure out is, if the customer comes, she shops directly on the floor, or if she wants to shop online, she wants it delivered home. She wants the convenience of it being delivered home. Yet another side to it is, if you think about the challenges that we need to solve. Again, I think it's brand specific, and there are real challenges to be solved. Take the fashion space. Any global brand of any serious scale, 1/3 of it gets returned in the lifestyle space. 1/3. That's, if you send 100 items out, 1/3 comes back. Think about, in the context of sustainability, ESG, what's the carbon footprint of this product that goes around in circles? And also, if we are trend following, and a lot of us spoke about Gen Z and if being super clued on to what's happening, and they're very, very fickle in many ways. They're willing to change their mind at the drop of a hat, really speaking. Now, what happens to this product that comes back and needs to be reprocessed? What's the cost of it from an economic perspective? What's the cost of it from an environment perspective? And there needs to be solutions that we need to solve for as an industry, as players, as brands. So we've had some success, many challenges that need to be continued to be tackled. And lastly, I would point out, Ayushmaan, that keeping it completely seamless. So for instance, if somebody walks into a store, to be treating the customer ditto as you would treat online and vice versa, I think makes enormous sense, because from a data standpoint, the customer really doesn't care how she's engaging with the brand. Yeah. And that synchronization, for instance, returns are a big deal. If you can get all returns to the stores, it's a big deal, as opposed to you having to pick one item at a time. It has a lot of cascading benefits. So in summary, I would say models, business models that go with, and the choices that we make alongside the business models are possibly as important as the technology choices that we make.
Got it. And there's one topic which you're going to be exploring more on is the one thing which you mentioned, right? This seamless experience is very good for consumer, but it's also leading to a lot of wastage and creating a lot of ecological debt. And we've been talking about sustainability, like I think every presentation, every discussion which has happened this morning, we have talked about reducing our carbon footprint. But at the same time, just because we are providing this seamless experience and we are providing everything on the platter to the consumer, it's also in a way creating a lot of carbon footprint, and we are creating a lot of ecological debt about it, and would love to explore more. But on the data front, right, we have Supreet and Deepak here, would love to understand in terms of how you guys have seen the overall consumer behavior from the data point of view, right, and how has that journey been and where are we progressing towards?
Absolutely, thanks Ayushmaan. And I'll pick up the cue from what Venkat just mentioned on data, right? I mean, the whole customer. So we, there's this term that we coined, which is phygital, which is basically a combination of physical and digital, right? So, we've heard a lot of people speak saying that, in the earlier days, let's say, 10 years back, probably most of us were in school. I think I was in college, So what we see over there is that, it was very specific to certain sectors, certain categories, right? You probably would not think about, having to buy an apparel online. But as over the years, there's a complete, you can say, there's just absolute mirror between the kind of categories that you would shop online or offline. They would actually be seamless. So you talk about whether shoes or apparel or even grocery for that matter, right? These were categories that we used to see earlier where you would want to actually touch and feel and then decide to go and make a purchase. But that's not the case today. So clearly the customer is changing. They expect one to, be there across any channel. And they're here to kind of experiment it and actually go forward for it. So we clearly, from a data standpoint, as MasterCard, we see a lot of customers today who are actually present in both the physical as well as the digital space. It goes seamless across categories. That actually gives us insight saying that there are more and more categories that can actually be there more on the digital side as against where they are anyway very strong on the physical side of it. So clearly, I think a very interesting space, and you'll see more and more of it coming in. Yeah. So, Deepak.
Okay. If I tell myself that I'm a retailer and I have an online, offline, connect with customers, and people come either to my offline store or they come to my online store. So as a retailer, I'm by and large neutral because I'm primarily interested in driving more sales. Okay, that's really how I look at it. Now, as a retailer, today when we fast track and we try to put ourselves in our present ecosystem, it's less about me thinking about that it's an online, offline business, but it's more about me thinking that the customer journey is non-linear. Okay, so I have to think more and more about the customer and less about the business. It has to be a very outside-in perspective. So I have to constantly understand that, okay, what are consumers really doing? Okay, are people coming to my online store? If these people are coming to my online store, what kind of product categories are they indulging in? What kind of order values are they doing out here? What is the data telling me that, okay, these kind of customers are purchasing goods at a particular price points and they're showing adoption towards certain product categories. Now, the same customer or maybe a different customer, when they come to my offline store, okay, what kind of products are they purchasing there? The data will give you some insights and understanding, and you have to just go out there and really commit yourself that, look, I will look at the data. We've seen organizations where the data is sitting in their systems, but they just don't look at it. So one discipline or one measure, we say that really care about the insights which are there in your CRM systems. Okay, get people to decode that. Yeah, because through that you'll pick up a lot of learning. Another factor, and in all of this, the reason I'm spending a little time on the thought process is, for any business in India, I believe that marketing is the biggest investment. Okay, and it's a place which can reward you or you can probably lose money on it. It's a high risk investment. You have to really, really care about how you spend your marketing dollars. You know, be very prudent about deciding where to spend, where not to spend, because businesses, in the same breath, a business which knows how to do marketing well versus a business who does not know how to do marketing well, the one which is the primary one will have a huge competitive advantage. You know, so marketing is a huge competitive advantage in today's world, and especially in a market like India, where, you know, the ARPUs are low, a diverse set of demographic profiles are there, you know, across markets. So decoding marketing is very critical for any business. Another point which comes top of mind to me is that as a business, you're constantly trying to see that, hey, you know, I want to bring new customers. I want to bring new relevant customers. That's a problem statement I want to do. And then how do I use the right kind of marketing, whether I do offline marketing or whether I do digital marketing. The second KPI you chase is that, how do I increase frequency? You know, how do I bring back customers? You know, should I bring them back to my online store or should I bring them to my offline store? Okay, so those are things which constantly one has to look at. And the way to really go about thinking and being a tech enabler, being a player in the ecosystem, just as you sit with quality data as a retailer in your own store, go out and find if there are other platforms out there which can augment that intelligence. Okay, there are people out there who are solving that problem. Like putting in a plug out here at VServe, what we do is basically bring in alternate customer intelligence so that your job or your enterprise which is seeking more insights on your customers becomes easy, you know, so that you have quality information available with you, which in turn you can decide whether you want to drive better retention, whether you want to acquire customers who can give you higher order value, okay? That kind of combinations which really help you grow your business on the back of that efficiency piece. And like consumer insights for any business, online, offline, and especially with the online world. I also want to tell you that it is very interesting that today you and I as consumers are leaving breadcrumbs of our transacting behavior and so many other interest points at lots of different places. Okay, so there is a lot of intelligence out there which can be borrowed and be leveraged from a marketing perspective. Yeah, so from my perspective, marketing efficiency is of highest importance for any business which is online, offline.
One point which I wanted to pick, and like this is something, Kavita, which you mentioned, right, during our discussion, which was around marketplaces. Like, and more and more discussion which is happening, and we're talking about spending those marketing dollars and getting those insights, right? And interestingly, Trent mentioned that, you know, they don't have that marketplace component. Like, so what's the significance of it? Like, what exactly are we able to achieve by being on the marketplace and not being on the marketplace?
I think that's a very good question, and we were discussing it when we were preparing for this panel. So it's a very controversial topic. Everybody would think that being on the marketplace absolutely gives you growth and revenue that you're very much seeking. But the one question that brands need to be cognizant of and be very deliberate in terms of making the decision around whether you want to be on a marketplace or not is, how do you see your brand itself? What is the positioning of your brand? And how do you see your brand grow over time? And how do you want to engage with consumers? I can take an example from the previous organization I worked for, which is IKEA. It is an iconic brand when it comes to home furnishing. And one of the key decisions there was that we will not be present on a marketplace. The reason was the experience that was going to be available, be it around planning, be it around how you presented the product range, how you shared inspiration with consumers, was something that would be very difficult to replicate on a marketplace, right? And the idea was, we are new to the country and it makes sense to build the brand one step at a time, ground up, and engage with the consumers directly on the website or the mobile app or in the store, because the whole positioning of the brand was built on inspiration, right? And it meant that you are trying to drive traffic to your own website, you're trying to drive traffic to your own mobile app, you're constantly improving the performance of your website and app in order to move conversion upwards, right? But it could be a completely different picture for another brand where, we know every single brand that has been present in a marketplace, there is a significant percentage of growth and sales that has come on the backdrop of the visitation and awareness and the number of consumers who are actually present on the marketplace, right? But it has also come with its own challenges. Again, I would say that everybody here in the room would agree that the reconciliation of the sales, the returns process has been significantly challenging. And we hear this from all the retailers. In my new role at Accenture, I hear this all the time from all the retailers that that is one of the biggest pain points of being on a marketplace. Right? So there are pros and cons of both, and it's finally a decision based on where you stand as a brand and what you represent towards your consumers. But it is a very important decision that needs to be very well thought through before we jump in.
Well, I think whether to be on a marketplace or not, it's very simple, in fact. If you're a retailer brand, IKEA, Uniqlo, the identity of the brand is the retail brand, then it is very important to have a DTC strategy which of your own, which is primarily your own, where you're a, if you're a Trent, then you're a retailer. You're primarily a retailer which is building its brand, but the main brand is the retail brand. But if you're a standalone brand, you have to be a multi-channel brand, in my opinion, to a large extent to unlock the value of the brand and make the brand relevant for the consumers. Relevance to consumer is very important. One of the very important ways of being relevant is to penetrate and have reach towards your consumers. In India, marketplaces are one of the ways to create relevance and penetration. Of course, there are challenges to work with the marketplace. How do you control the pricing, promotion, reconciliations? But hey, if you have to succeed in business, not just in India, anywhere in the world, you need to crack the code. And cracking the code is very important. You cannot not crack the code and win in business.
And also to add to that, I think Shoppers Stop is an example of a brand that has done that really well. I mean, they're a big retailer, they have an identity of their own. But they also have a flagship store on the Amazon market space. And shopperstop.com is also a big driver of this thing. And they are one of the first retailers. They made sure they observed very keenly, they were keenly aware of the fact that there was this whole price war between their offline and online channels. And they made sure to standardize price across. So if it's discounted everywhere. So they're one of those who are in both and who've done both well, even though they're a big retailer.
Yeah, and Venkat, that's what, I think she put it very beautifully, right? At the same time, I understand, what trend gets is also the brand name which can be present like an Amazon or on a Myntra having a special store. But doesn't that also take away that we are not in a way providing the true omni experience for a consumer, wherein it literally means wherever I want to find the product. For example, I'm very comfortable in Myntra and I should be able to buy that product on Myntra because I built a trust on that portal. So is it that goes against that philosophy of omni?
I think this is not working. Or it is. Thank you. I think Abhishek put it quite well. You have choices to make, and those choices are dependent on what are you trying to build and how are you hoping to connect with the customer. Let me give an even more stark example, Ayushmaan, and it's very counterintuitive. We have a business which is the Zudio business, which has been growing at quite a clip. We now have more than 320 stores across the country, and pretty much all of the growth has happened in the last 3 years. Now, we used to be online. At some point, we said it's so complicated for that kind of price point and that kind of complexity. We pulled it off. Okay. So, I think it's difficult, counterintuitive choices that pay off. Now, if you're a brand, which is not a retailer brand. I quite like that phrase. And you want to have reach. You have possibly no choice but to be distributed. On the other hand, if you are a retailer who also is a brand, I think you have a lot more power in your hands and the ability to reach yourself. For instance, Kavita talked about IKEA. It's their own product. They don't sell, for all practical purposes, any other product. Zara doesn't sell any other product. It's part of our business as well, as it's a joint venture. And we would never go on a marketplace because it's our product and we can be entirely direct to consumer and we can have the direct retail reach. So why go ahead and take the complexities? On the other hand, if your only way to reach is through distribution, then you might as well be on a marketplace and have the visibility. So I think it's a bunch of choices which work for the brand. I guess one of our panelists said, it's all about the customer, 100%. I would just add, it's all about the customer in the context of the brand, because there is a pool of customers that you can address and the pool of customers you should choose not to address.
Yeah, it's very important to know in the business. Sanjeev, you wanted to add something?
I think it's about the brand purpose and the brand's choice, as we all said the same thing here. I think, for a single brand, it becomes extremely important to get to the reach. I can give you, again, stark examples of brands in India which do not discount at all. They don't believe in discounting. But that's a stand that they have taken, that, we will not discount. And so there goes 30% of our business, big deal. Let it go, no problem. But we build the brand that way. Yeah. And some of those brands have done IPOs and have become amazingly, great brands, not only in India, but abroad. But that's what is the brand stand. For us, it's very important because we are, again, coming back to our choices, we are a Gen Z millennial brand. We kind of do researches on Gen Z and millennial, how much time they spend on the phones, how much do they actually go through the product, and how many of them land up in the store, what age bracket come down there to pick up, how much of them are picking up online, how much of them are picking up offline. Our subject today is online plus offline. We believe that both are going to survive. Just like Venkat said, that there are choices to be made. I mean, if you have an umbrella like IKEA or Tata's in the fashion business, in the hypermarket business, all of that, I think that's the brand game. But for mono brands like us, it's very important that we reach where our consumers are and give the best level of services that is possible. So I think it's both the sides. It works both the ways. I mean, we were having this discussion in the morning. I mean, just before this, that would I buy a sofa online? I said no. Why will I buy a sofa online? I'll go to the store, I'll look at it, I'll see the fabric, I'll see the leather, and all of that. But then she completely gave a different version of it. Yeah. She said, you'll be surprised to know that people are buying sofas online.
I did.
You did? Yeah. So, you see, perspectives change over a period of time. I mean, as a person, I mean, this is my 29th year in retail, and, every 5 years I'm rewiring myself to kind of gear up for what's going to be the next change. Yeah. If you'd have asked me the same panel 15 years back, I would have said, what are they talking about?
That is true. Like every year I say I'm not going to make this purchase online, and next year I end up making the same purchase. Like I never thought furniture as a category will like really pick up, but I stopped going to the furniture store. Like I just go to Urban Ladder or Pepperfry and just place an order.
I'll give you one more example, and I'm sure Venkat, you sell what I'm talking about. So if you go to buy formal jackets or formal suits, you cannot buy them online. Very few people buy that unless you're so sure about the fashion brand that, hey, this is the size which is going to fit me, so I'm going to go online and order. It's not there. I've got my colleagues here from my last company sitting right there, and let them say how many people go. So you can't. There are certain products which you have to come to offline. You have to try it, test it, and that's what I call the romance of shopping, which is not going to go away, at least not for a couple of decades in India.
We never know. Jewelry was a segment we never thought will be so prominent online, and look at today. Yeah.
I just want to add, and what Venkat said and what Sanjeev said, right? I got your name right. Sorry. So basically, yes, today consumers you will find doing everything. Okay. As a business, similarly, you will find suddenly being overwhelmed that should I do everything? But as people spoke on the panel that, the sharply you understand about your consumer and the product mix, and according to that, and you understand your competitive landscape and how you want to position yourself in that landscape, and pick up your area of strength and go all out. Don't do anything in between. Just don't do anything in between. Just pick up that area and excel it so well that you'll start seeing the fruits of it, and which could be completely contrarian or counterintuitive, to your peer group. Okay, so be it, so that's really how we see this opportunity in the market, today. And I would say this is that I'm going to give another example out here. Why has there been such a massive rise of D2C brands? Okay, suddenly the number of brands as a consumer, which we were witnessing before the digital era, was X in every category. That has gone to probably like 100X, 200X. Okay, with D2C, you're going to see another 20,000 brands come into India in the next 5-10 years. Easily, I am saying it. Okay, now you're basically saying that, look, what has happened out here? Digital behavior. Okay, so digital behavior has led to creation of brands. It's the other way around. Okay, so brands are getting created on the back of, the fact that, okay, there are consumers out there. Now you'll say, how will we all in the market go ahead and compete? Okay, technically the market is going to become massive for everyone. No one is going to eat into anyone's kitty. The whole consumption is rising. Okay, and you will find that, like if e-commerce comes in and people do research on it, okay, that does not mean they are taking away the market. Or if e-commerce says that I'm 5% of the market or 6% of the market, that does not mean they're taking away share from the offline world. Okay, so the whole market is expanding. Offline, online, everything is expanding out there. More brands are coming. Consumers, in all of this, you could also say, because of unlimited supply of brands, the consumer is having unlimited demand for brands. It's the chicken and egg story. At one point of time in my wardrobe, I had only probably, when I looked at my shirts, I would have probably only 3 or 4 brands. Today, if I open my wardrobe, I'll have 15 different brands.
Yeah, the visibility is increasing.
So as a consumer, I am consuming 15 plus brands and I have appetite to even experiment more. Yeah. So consumer is having that kind of an appetite. Yeah. You have to figure out that how I place my product and deeply focus on the consumer
we'll go
inside.
to Supreet and then we'll open up the floor for questions.
I'll just make it quick. So I wanted to make it a point on, Sanjeev, you made on the metaverse, right? Absolutely. So one of the first things that anyone would think of is, what's the return? What's the point about being there? The point is actually, it's a segment of customers that, are looking forward to seeing you there. So that's very important that we recognize it. So, we've been working with 2 pretty big brands that were actually contemplating. They are there. They're selling much more for on a particular price point of a particular product on the metaverse than they were actually selling it at a store. So clearly a different set of clientele. They expect us to be there. And I think it's definitely worth a thing to kind of see if you have to be there as well. So not an area for us to probably miss.
Yeah, so my point was that you cannot ignore it. Exactly. You have to be there because maybe 4 years down the line, we are sitting in the same forum and then the subject line says metaverse.
Yeah.
Right? So that'll happen. Ultimately, it'll happen. My limited point was that today, when we forward think our strategies, we think, why should we put good money after something which is going to happen after a long time? But you have to. Today, we are investing into metaverse. I know I told my strategy head, we're going to get 0 ROI on this. He says, sir, you're going to get 0 ROI, which is perfectly fine. But let's be there. Let's start the visibility.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that's the whole point.
Maybe I think in the discussion on online and offline, we discussed a whole host of topics. But one fundamental thing I would like to add on is, what is your business model? Basically, there will be multiple evolutions of technology that will happen, right? But fundamentally, the question is, what is your product or service offer, right? How are you going to get it to the customer, which is all about the channel and fulfillment and some of those aspects. In the context of retail, I think we have not discussed the topic of people, but I think that is a very, very important element to look at as well. And of course, we have at length discussed data, right? I would only say that we discussed online and offline and what it means for growth. But the reality is we are actually living in a post-omni-channel world, right? That places may be past now, and we are entering a next horizon of growth where the expectation is that retailers have actually adapted to what online and offline and the convergence of both of it brought about, right? So that is where there is maybe a need to do a little bit of a reset in terms of how we think about the retailing business model for the future. That's what I would leave my thoughts with.
Yeah.
So I also have a point to make, since we work with multiple brands, especially in the D2C space. There's another trend happening. I think everybody must be aware of it. A lot of the D2C exclusive, right? People who are selling online only are also getting into physical store space.
The story is
big
always
time.
Yeah.
So coming back to the points that were being made here, that people want to still, feel the product and, buy it only once after they've felt it, even though it's exclusively available online.
Yeah.
It's getting more experiential as we, go along, evolve in this journey. That's one thing that's also happening.
And I love the fact that, because I said, we are already in that post-omni world, right? So it's all about how do we rewire and understand the business model and how do we adopt those strategies, because whether we like it or not, we have moved past that stage wherein there was this question about whether online and offline, and I think it took a lot of years for all of us to understand that it's not which one, it is both together and how do we complement each and everything together. So we're going to stop the panel discussion right now. We're going to be opening the floor for questions. So any questions, I'll just come down. It's fine.
Hello everyone, this is Shilpi from Fiber to Fashion, and my question is that offline definitely is a challenge for the customers to go to the store and then buy. Online is an easier task. However, is there any facility that the brands or retailers are planning to include metaverse so that things become more easier for the customers? Anyone can answer.
Are you a metaverse user?
No, but I cover brands which are into metaverse.
Because we just spoke about metaverse, and that's exactly what we said. We know that online and offline today is done and dusted. It's already there. We are moving forward and trying to grow those, those subjects that we call offline and online. Now it's all unified and we are moving forward. Metaverse is definitely something which will come over in the next couple of years. In India, it takes a little time for people to adapt and adopt to the hardware and the software and all of that. It'll take time, but then it will be there, of course. Yeah, there are many brands from India which are already having their meta stores.
They do.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And probably as MasterCard, we can help you, so I can see you at the booth.
Yeah, I would say the problem at the ground level is also very different. Even if you go to most of the stores today, one of the biggest reasons why you would not make a purchase is your size is not available. Especially in footwear category, I think 6, 7, 8 sizes are almost out of stock. But very rarely you'll find wherein the staff will come to you and be like, hey, you know what, this is our online website. I'll place an order here itself and tomorrow morning you'll receive it from some other store. That level of integration itself is taking time for a lot of brands. So of course, Meta is something which will probably become big, and there is a lot of experimentation around the world which is going, especially in the luxury category. But for the mass adoption, I feel first Meta has to be adopted by mass before it gets adopted by retailer. I think still the biggest fight which, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's still about how do we tightly integrate that online and offline so that for users it's like a singular experience. Yeah.
Can I just, so what is the metaverse ultimately for a brand and a product? It is about digitally capturing a part of the brand or the product which you own in the metaverse. So for being relevant for a brand, one needs to have an iconic moment, a product or a piece that consumers want to own in the metaverse. So I think just getting into metaverse is an important thing, but first and foremost, you need to create a moment that people want to own on the metaverse. So it is the future, and I think brands have to first have iconic value that people want to own as a part, and that is very, very important.
Hello. Hi, this is Digvijay from Prima. The question is, when we are talking about omnichannel presence and omnichannel retail growth, we see a lot of offline companies or standalone or private labels going online and in the marketplace. However, we don't see major players like Amazon or Flipkart setting up their offline stores. So, why do you think that is happening? And do you think there is any change that is going to happen likely in the future?
I can start in, Kavita, if you want, you can go for it. Yeah. So, by the way, actually, Amazon does have stores. I mean, in India, they're yet to set it up. But if you see in the US, for example, they've set up stores in a big way. So they clearly see the need to have a physical presence. And, a lot of their new acquisitions and all that they're doing is also in the space where they want to actually increase their footprint in the physical space. Yeah. So we'll see that happening here as well. May not necessarily be in the same size and shape which we see overseas. Yeah.
Right. So I'm talking in the context of India as a market only, because we saw Patanjali growing from zero to $1 billion dollars company. However, players like Amazon and Flipkart are still to start their offline stores in big manner. So again, the question comes in with whether they will be entering and whether they will be listing their private label so that the customer can look and feel at their product. Yeah.
I think that change is happening across. Of course, Amazon and Flipkart are two examples, but it's interesting to look at how direct-to-consumer brands have worked.
Nykaa,
right?
for example.
Yeah. And if you look at Nykaa, for example, right? It was an online-only brand. Now you can see a Nykaa in multiple parts of any city, right? They have been bringing out and looking at their offline presence in a big fashion, right? Pepperfry did this a long time ago, right? Studio Pepperfries are now all around India, including tier 2, tier 3 cities and everywhere else, right? So we will always see this because it's at the convergence on online and offline is where there is the potential to truly unlock value.
And I feel that's happening more. It's also very industry specific. If you see in the beauty segment, Sugar Cosmetic, Nykaa, Mamaearth, all of these brands to get their reach more, they've all started their offline presence. Of course, there are brands like Amazon and Flipkart wherein we have not seen that trend. But in US or any other part of the world, you'll see that also happening. So the world has to be omni-channel. Like there needs to be an offline presence enabled by the online presence. Any other questions? We gave so much time for the panel's questions.
I think I have a comment on this discussion just now on the offline presence of the brand. It's not just about the offtakes that you will get from the offline in the journey of a brand. Sometimes you decide to have an offline presence purely because the brand experience that you provide over there is great, and therefore you have certain brands who will be present at airports sometimes, then they will shut the stores, then they will have presence in certain prominent malls and they will shut those stores because they're also creating brand experience of their brands and creating awareness in the early stage of their life. So I'm not sure if there is an exact formula, but I think it is about brand's life journey, it's about what's happening in that market and where the audience is and the business model.
Yeah, I think it goes back to your point, Kavita, is in terms of what the business model has to be. Yeah. Any other question, guys? Yeah.
Cheers, thank you. Rob here. Kavitha, maybe for you, if you could answer this one. You touched briefly on retail media networks and retailers launching those. I'm a big believer in the offline-online experience being quite unified. Are you seeing many retailers looking to develop those retail media networks to grow that revenue opportunity to maybe offset some of that cost of the online channel?
Absolutely, yes. This is a new trend that we are seeing. Retail media networks are gaining a lot of traction. And when I said that, I meant there was a time when it was search, there was a time when it was social, and now it is the era of retail media networks. So companies, retailers specifically are starting to look at it. Of course, the big change or transition is happening much more in the marketplaces, right, with the whole ad sales and the ad networks and so on. But I think it is a trend that we need to watch out for, and it could be the next big thing in terms of how you look at media and marketing together. So I definitely feel it's a big trend to watch out for.
Okay, I just want to add to that because at VServe, we've done a partnership with Future Retail. Okay, so we basically did a partnership with Future Pay, And what we've done basically is that last 6 years of consumer data, offline store data, has been organized across like some 300 signals. So we know that, okay, these are consumers who have purchased center-filled biscuits, or these are consumers who've gone and purchased honey. Yeah. So we bring all of that together in a manner on our tool. And then there are FMCG brands, okay, who come to our platform and they basically leverage this intelligence to make the digital marketing efficient. So fundamentally, an offline business is already participating in the Indian market with us on building a retail media business.
The last question. Yeah.
So hello everyone, I'm from Xeno. My question goes to Abhimanyu. Sorry, just a second. Yeah, Abhishek. So Abhishek, I just wanted to understand that these days omni-channel retailers are facing a lot of challenges, right? So with respect to Puma, what is the biggest challenge you guys face, and what do you do to overcome those challenges?
Well, like I said before, there is challenge in business. See, first and foremost, you have a product and a brand that you want to outreach to the consumer in the most convenient way in which the consumer expects, right? And the biggest challenge is to just enable this convenience in the most profitable way, right? So whether you want to deliver online orders from stores, or you want to create a dark store to reach out and cut the lead time of delivery online, or how do you integrate inventory across channels? How do you have a single view of the audience, whether if he enters your store in Linking Road or in a Connaught Place or comes to your own shopping app, and having that single view of that audience and being relevant to the audience with information that the audience, that customer wants, right? So these are the challenges. But what is extremely critical for us to succeed is that if a customer expects something at a convenience, how do we deliver that promise in the most profitable way? So business is always about balancing that and making that that convenience for the customer.
So thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much, panel, for being here, for sharing all the knowledge, and thank you so much for listening, guys.